Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be continuing our video series, Latinx Artist Here and Now. I'm with the wonderful conductor, violinist, Guillermo Figueroa. Thank you, Guillermo, for joining me on this series.
A pleasure to always talk to you, Hector. Nice to see you.
So how are things in New Mexico?
Great, actually. I'm having a good time, even though these are very, very weird times, but it's been a good time to uh, study, to take it easy, to get away from the hustle bustle that we normally musicians live in. A lot of studying and looking at scores of music. So I'm actually having a very good time.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, Guillermo, why don't you share with our viewers a little bit about yourself? Meaning, specifically, how did you start as a musician?
How long do we have? um,
Uh,
yeah, I'm from Puerto Rico, and I come from a family of musicians. I'm fourth generation professional musician, Figueroa musician. Um, my father was a wonderful conductor, violinist, violist. I think I'm one of the very few people in the world that can say that I did exactly what my father was doing and wanted me to do, and I love it. So, and I know that's rare because I have three girls and none of them did anything that I wanted them to do. So, but music, I then moved to New York to go to school there, and I lived there for 32 years. I did a variety of things. The Orpheus Chamber Orchestra. I was concertmaster of the New York City Ballet. Then I got into conducting, and I got positions with the New Mexico Symphony and the Puerto Rico Symphony. And I've been in New Mexico nearly 20 years now, which is how I came to know you, because I was hired by Opera Southwest to conduct your fantastic opera Bless Mules, which was an incredible experience, one that I'm very grateful that I had a chance to do. So,
well, I feel very honored that you did the premiere of Les Miltuma. You're a wonderful colleague and good friend, and I was very happy with the work that you did. Then tell me about your time in New York.
I'm probably most proud of being called a founding member of the Orpheus Chamber Orchestra, which, as some of you may know, it's a conductorless orchestra, and became quite world famous. We did a lot of recordings for Deutsche Grammophon. So it was really a labor of love, and we created something that didn't exist up until then, a conductorless orchestra. So I'm very proud of that. I then spent 10 years as concertmaster of the New York City Ballet. During that time, I was able to work with unbelievable musicians and artists and creators. Uh, so that was really an amazing thing. I've worked with a lot of composers. I am also proud to say that I've had 4 violin concertos written for me and premiered by me, by composers Ernesto Cordero, Mario Davidovsky, Miguel del Aguila, and Harold Farberman. So those were amazing experiences, and I've recorded most of them. It's really very cool to, which was obviously the experience with you with the opera, to be able to work with a composer that's right there. We have no doubts. There should be, like, imagine if I could do that with Beethoven or Mozart, because of course nowadays we're endlessly arguing about, well, what do you think Beethoven wants to hear? Is this too fast? Is this too slow? Is that, but with a composer, we can say you know exactly what they want. And those are experiences that are really priceless. I was so happy that I was able to do that with you, because I remember when I was studying the score, um, the music didn't exist. It's not like I could go to a recording or anything like it would do. So we have to create it in essence from scratch. And I remember that you were very flexible and I felt like there was a real interchange of ideas where I could um, almost feel like I was part of the creative process, because the creative process is very important too, as well. The notes exist in your mind, but they also exist on the page, but they don't sound until we play them. So working with a composer is always one of the most fascinating and inspiring things that I can do.
So I firmly believe that for a composer, it's essential to collaborate with the conductors and the singers, because they, we have it in our minds of what we think it here, what it should sound like. But oftentimes, other artists such as yourself, um, they teach us many things, and it was a lesson for me. So I'm very grateful that we had an opportunity to work together, and that I had an opportunity to learn from you in that process. So that was very, thank you for that. Now
Oh, thank you.
so tell me about how because you started as a instrumentalist, as a violinist, yes, and then
Yes.
you moved to conducting. So how did that happen?
Well, again, first of all, I had the influence of my father, who was my first violin teacher and viola, and he was a phenomenal conductor. So I saw that since I was a baby, and I was always inspired by that. I always knew that I would be conducting at some point, but I came to it quite late. I was already in my 40s. Um, but I'm very happy I did that, because I played in orchestras all my life. I know what it feels like to be in the back of a section or the front of a section. I know what I need to see from a conductor. I know all the bad things that conductors do, and which I try not to do.
Mhm.
Um, so when I came to it, there was a certain amount of, well, not a certain, a huge amount of experience of being from the music from the inside, which I think has benefited my conducting. So
Tell me about your work in New Mexico.
I've been here in New Mexico almost 20 years now, and it's been a blessing. It's a magnificent place. It's as beautiful as can be. Great place to raise a family. I have 3 daughters. Wonderful musicians. There are 2 major orchestras in the state. I conduct one of them, the Santa Fe Symphony, um, and it's been great.
Yeah,
It's heaven on earth.
when uh, when I was visiting New Mexico to work on Bless Me Ultima, I really fell in love with New Mexico. I would I would love to have it be my second home. I just Albuquerque, and I love the people in Albuquerque. They're just
Yeah, yeah.
really good people.
It's a very livable city. Yeah.
uh, yeah. What do you think some of the challenges are? I mean, this year has been, horrific, but what do you think some of the challenges are being a conductor, music director for a symphony
You mean here in New Mexico
in New
or in general?
Mexico? And well, you can answer that any way you want to, whatever.
Well, I'll take the New Mexico angle. It is difficult because think about it. When if you think of classical music in the United States, would you ever think of New Mexico? I don't. Very few people would. Um, I lived in New York for 32 years, and I was at the top of the music business there, so I know how people think. Like if you're not from New York or Boston or Chicago or LA, it, ah, how good can you be? It's just, I mean, I understand the mentality, but having spent all this time here, I realize how wrong that is. How much, what a wealth of art, music, musicians, people, talented people are in so many places. I would have never thought of that after my years in New York, that I could find what I find here. The musicians are extraordinary. Of course, the art world is unsurpassed in Santa Fe. The Santa Fe Opera, the Santa Fe Chamber Festival, and our 2 local orchestras, the Mexico Philharmonic and the Santa Fe Symphony.
So what kind of advice might you offer to a young conductor?
try to somehow or other get inside the orchestra as much as you can. Um, if you are near an local orchestra and you know people, the musicians that work there, ask permission to sit in the orchestra in rehearsals and listen and look around, see what people are experiencing. Try to be from the point of view of an oboe player or a trumpet player or a timpanum player all the way back there. What do they need to see? What is expected? What is required? Look at the conductors. Are their motions effective? Are they communicating? Are their physical motions communicating what their mouth is saying? Because you know that very often it doesn't connect. How many times have I seen a conductor that goes like this and he says softer, softer, soft, like and it doesn't. The motion does not connect with. So you have to do that. I would also, the strongest advice would be learn, no matter how well or badly you do it, but learn to play a string instrument. Know about string technique. Know what it feels like to draw a bow. And to make a sound so that you have a connection to that side. Try to learn as much music and scores as possible, and solidify your technique. Don't assume that you can just sort of get by talking a lot. The less you can talk as a conductor, the better.
I'm wondering from your perspective as an artist of color, and coming from Puerto Rico, what do you think, and maybe in context about what else is also going on right now, what kind of challenges do you think artists of color right now face in terms of having the work, in terms of performing or having the work seen, or maybe maybe an anecdote of some experiences that you might have had?
It's hard to say because it's a little bit like what I said about New Mexico. Traditionally, Hispanic artists, Black artists have not been thought of that much of in the classical music world. It's always been seen as a Western European art, which mostly it is. Traditionally has been certainly the majority of the great composers. So that's a very difficult thing. I'm not saying that we are not respected as artists, but not in the classical world. The fact that this country, the United States, has had such an amazing surge of Hispanic population has made it impossible for people to ignore us any longer. And it's been obvious in the amount of artists that have come out. I can't say that I personally experience a lot of that, let's call it discrimination for being a Hispanic, because my experience in New York was actually magnificent and blissful. I was able to connect with a wonderful crowd of musicians that were at the peak of the profession in New York. But so I don't have that first-hand experience, but I don't deny that it happens in a lot of different places. But I think that tide is changing. When musicians like you coming to the fore and lots of others, a personality like Gustavo Dudamel in LA that has made it impossible for people to ignore, and he's somebody that has people say like, what? Wow, you can have that. And the things that I've had happen in Venezuela with El Sistema has been all blessings for demonstrating that we're as good as anybody.
So Guillermo, thank you so much for joining me on this Zoom call. Again, it was an honor working with you on Bless Me Ultima. New Mexico is lucky to have you.
Thank you.
And
Thank
I
you.
hope very soon that we're able to work again. So,
I hope so too.
all right.
Great to talk to you, Hector.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining me on this series. And I look forward to more videos that we'll be posting about upcoming projects. Thank you so much.